I'll say it again. If you can't be a parent and an elected official, quit being an elected official. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment on the Tomi Lahren is Fearless YouTube page at Tomi Lahren is Fearless. The show starts now. Well, folks, this issue is still stuck in my craw. A small group of entitled, whiny women in the House are still demanding the special accommodation of being able to vote from home or have someone else do it for them. And their ringleader is Colorado Representative Brittany Patterson.
I understand that my colleague, Representative Luna, has done everything she can to try to find a path forward. And this is ultimately the only option that existed at the end. But this does not address the real barriers that people will continue to face. This would be the last week that I could have been home, still working in my district, working as a member of Congress and representing my constituents, but making sure that I was not traveling across the country with my son. Do you think that there would be one Republican here today that would stand and vote present on the bills this week coming forward on my behalf? I don't think so. This is why this is not a workable solution. This is not going to address when people are unable to be here for medical reasons and for the well-being of their kid after giving birth. And so while I appreciate trying to find whatever common ground we can, this is not a deal. This does not solve our problem, and the work continues.
Sounds like a personal problem to me, but Brittany uses her child as a prop, but seems to be able to juggle being a new mommy and an elected member of Congress when she's getting the spotlight. She also managed to make plenty of time for her domestic press tour in the last week. Those are just some of the examples. And while Brittany seems to be the captain of this entitlement train, others, including Republican Rep. Anna Paulina Luna, have joined her in the battle cry for special mommy accommodations. I'd also like to point out that, likely unlike your workplace, the House of Representatives has a child care center. So yeah, their demand is ridiculous. And not only does it open the door for more abuses of proxy and remote voting, it frankly sets women back 50 years. What kind of message does this send to voters? That if you vote for a young woman to represent you in Congress, she might decide she can't show up to vote. By pulling this, you're making women look weak and whiny, the very sentiment generations of women have been working so hard to put to bed. Who wants to elect someone to represent them that isn't committed to showing up? 535 people represent 335 million of us. It's not too much to ask that you show up to vote. After all, your constituents showed up to vote for you. Joining me now is the Grace Curley Show host, Grace Curley. All right, Grace, I'm so happy to have you. I don't know how you feel about this particular topic, but I think you heard loud and clear how I feel. I welcome you to share your perspective.
Thank you so much, Tomi. I'm honored to be on. I think there's a lot of dynamics at play here. One of the things you hit on that I think is a really important part of this to remember is that a lot of the criticism and a lot of the concern here from conservatives, it's not from a lack of empathy. It's not even from a lack of understanding of the situation. I actually don't know if I qualify as young anymore, but I'm a working mom. I understand that things get tricky. But what you said about kind of the slippery road we go down is really where people are concerned, which is, yeah, there's a lot of things that start off in government and in bureaucracy with good intentions. There's a lot of things that we're sold as the voters. Hey, this is only going to be used in this specific situation. It's never going to be taken advantage of. It's never going to be widened to other things. And then what ends up happening is down the line, it does take on a life of its own. And it's really hard to claw that back. I will say, though, what I find interesting, and you mentioned Paulina Luna, the representative, and obviously she's getting a lot of pushback from Speaker Mike Johnson. Something that I think is oftentimes misinterpreted by the left is when we have this kind of infighting, if you even want to call it that, when we have these disagreements as a Republican Party, it's oftentimes seen as a weakness. It's oftentimes seen as this is why the Republicans are in disarray, because they're not in lockstep like Democrats. I would actually totally disagree with that sentiment. I think this really shows a party that has widened the tent, that is going to have these kind of growing pains and that can hopefully come to the table and work on it together. But I think what they have to be able to prove here to skeptical voters is this is not going to be something that gets taken advantage of or gets abused. And people have every right to be concerned about that. We've seen it happen time and time again.
Yeah, I'm concerned about that, how it was used and abused during COVID. There's no reason why that excuse wouldn't be used once again. I mean, that was completely exploited for far too long. But, my perspective on it isn't just that. My perspective really is the message that this sends. And it bothers me. It bothers me because it feels very entitled. When you are a representative and you're representing, first of all, you volunteered to do this. You actually asked people to take their time to go vote for you. You took donor money, you campaigned, you said, I want to represent you. You said, hey, I want to be a servant of the people. And then you're saying, well, but, I also want to be able to be home and have someone else kind of do the job for me. And I would understand if this was a 24/7 job. But as I outlined when this first got brought up last week, these members of Congress get on average about 100 days more than the average American. Not only that, but they still get paid when they are home and when they're not there to be voting actively. They're still getting paid if they want to do this, that, they want to go home, spend their time this. And as I mentioned in my opening, there's also a daycare center provided by the House of Representatives. So it's hard for me, for these young moms, to be able to tell their constituents, I know that you have to go to work. I know that your workplace probably doesn't provide you with daycare, but I, as your representative, feel that I should be accommodated. I just think it's totally the wrong message to be sending, left, right, and center.
Yeah, and it's funny you bring up COVID because I thought about this a lot during COVID. There are certain jobs that allow you to work remote. There are certain jobs that you sign up for, and that is a benefit of them. And every job comes with, as you know, pros and cons. And for some people, you're able to work from anywhere in the world, and that's great. And then there were other people during COVID who had to fill shipments or had to drive trucks or had to, do jobs in service, and they weren't able to work from home. And that is the reality. It might not seem fair to people, but that's the reality. Certain jobs require certain things. I was talking to a friend the other day who was very upset that there were people in her office that were able to work remotely, and we're going back and forth on it. And finally, I was kind of like, yeah, but what is your job description? And her job description was essentially to be the forward-facing person in the office who's kind of a liaison for people who are coming in. And I was like, how would you do that if you were working remotely? And she said, well, I couldn't do it working remotely. And I said, right. So that's what you signed up for. I get that you're frustrated by that, but you might have to find something else. You might have to, not re-sign with those people because that's what they're expecting of you. It's reality. Life isn't always fair or cut and dry, but that's just how it goes. And I think you're right. I think that when you really get into the details of the kind of privileges that are afforded to people in this position, it really doesn't make sense why they're not able to make this happen and, find a way around it. Because as you pointed out, there's plenty of people around the country who are finding ways around things every single day. And, they don't have the luxury of complaining about it, really.
Yeah, I also think it's just such a bad look for these women to be going around doing their press tour on the issue. When I saw the clip of the three of them sitting there doing, I believe it was with CBS, doing this interview, and it was clearly from, a location, it wasn't from home. And there was professional lighting, and they had their hair and makeup done, by appearance. That's what I would assume, based on, being in television. I can tell a professional lighting, and I know what CBS probably would put on for these ladies. So the fact that you took time to go do an interview about it, but yet you're saying I can't show up to vote because I'm a new mom. I'm sorry, there's just not the consistency there. And I think this is about getting attention. And it really bothers me, the members of Congress who now seem that getting attention is their primary job, more so than actually representing the American people. So I'm fed up with it. I find it annoying. I don't care if you're Republican, Democrat, liberal. I don't care if you're a space Martian. It annoys me. but I want to move on because there's a lot to discuss. I want to actually move on to this. Let's move on to Amy Coney Barrett. Okay, so in that Supreme Court decision allowing Trump to carry out, I don't know, the authority and duties of the president of the United States, a lot of conservatives and MAGA folk are pretty upset that Amy Coney Barrett sided with the liberal minority on that deportation order regarding the Alien Enemies Act. And she's getting a lot of flack for it. And I'm wondering if you think that's warranted or not.
I do. I understand why people are so annoyed with this and frustrated, especially when you think about how tumultuous and how much Trump had to really defend that choice and came through for her. How, he was really criticized and not just with her, but also with Brett Kavanaugh. And he stuck it out for these conservative justices, and he really gave them such an opportunity. And then for her to go, and what it seems like to me, Tomi, is it seems a little bit like this is a uniquely conservative problem where we pick people and you don't always know what a justice is going to do. I mean, Brett Kavanaugh has made decisions that I don't agree with. So it's not a guarantee that, hey, you're going to do everything I want for the rest of my life. And people, that's the gamble you take. But I think what is very frustrating about this specific situation is it's hard not to look at it and feel like she was doing it to try to appease the left or try to make them happy or try to, show everyone that I'm on this side of these liberal far left women. And I'm actually going to quote you, and you might not even remember saying this, but it was way, way, way back in the day when Megyn Kelly left NBC, or I'm sorry, she left Fox for NBC. And there was a man on the street interview and they asked you what you thought about it. And I remember you said, this is great for Megyn Kelly, good for her. But she should keep in mind they're never going to like her. Like they might like you right now because it's useful for them. It's a talking point. It's something they can say. Look at here. This person hates Trump too. But down the line, you're still a conservative. You're never going to be part of that club. And I think for people to see this, it just feels really weak. It feels like someone who's trying to throw the left a bone. And also on this issue, it is so imperative that we do follow the rule of law and that we do go back to the Constitution, because what we saw over the last 4 years of Joe Biden was complete dereliction of duty. And we have to right that wrong. Now, obviously, the silver lining is Amy Coney Barrett wasn't enough to turn this in the favor of the left, but it's still a scary thought that it came down to her, that she could have. It's still a scary thought that she wouldn't have been on the right side of this and on this issue that to a lot of people feels like a no-brainer.
Yeah.
And so I think I really do get why people are looking at this going, how did this happen?
So I see it both ways. I don't like when people just pile on somebody because they make a decision. She doesn't work for Donald Trump. And in fact, these Supreme Court justices, through their confirmations and all this, they basically have to follow the rule of law as they see it. And that's why they have these appointments for life. And that's why they shouldn't be motivated politically, even if they are more conservative. So I don't like when people pile on people because they make a decision, based on their own interpretation of the law and the Constitution. So I'm not going to jump on that bandwagon. I guess for me, it was just so confusing because you brought up this seems like a no-brainer. I mean, I'm not a legal expert. I've never claimed to be a legal expert. But when you look at this and you tell the average layman out there, hey, should a judge sitting in D.C. be able to hamstring the Trump administration from deporting criminal aliens? Most people would say, no, they don't have that jurisdiction. It doesn't make any sense. It's like somebody that, works for, Portland PD being able to give me a speeding ticket in Nashville, Tennessee. It doesn't make sense, especially when it comes down to the duties of the president. So it's not so much that she turned against Trump. It's just that this doesn't make sense. And it's so bizarre to rationalize it for me. And that's where my criticism of her comes in, because I just don't get it.
Yeah, and it was also for anyone who watched the confirmation process, there's no denying that she's an incredible legal mind. I mean, I'll never forget when she held up that piece of paper and there were no notes on it. This is a woman who understands the law backwards and forwards. There's no denying that. And looking at her resume, looking at her accomplishments. So you do kind of think to yourself, like, what was your rationale here for this opinion? It's very bizarre. And I think that people are fed up. And when you look at these deportations and when you look at Judge Boasberg, who wanted Trump to turn this plane around full of Venezuelan gang members, it's crazy because you can look at it from the legal perspective and the lawfare and everything that's going on. But you can also look at it from the court of public opinion. And you're right. People are looking at this issue and they're going, this is what we're focused on. Like, these are the people that you're defending, are these sometimes gangbangers who we're trying to bring back to the United States of America. We don't have other things we want to be focused on. So there's a lot to unpack here, but it's definitely a head scratcher. And it's a good lesson for Republicans that, you can't guarantee what's going to happen. Like, you can't gamble on everyone always, especially Supreme Court justices, always going your way. It's very interesting to see the breakdowns of some of these decisions.
Yeah, it's very bizarre on that. I'm happy every time we deport an illegal alien, just in general. I am. And I know some people find that like cold hearted, like, oh no. And I'm like, they came here illegally. That's why, because I'm a nerd and this is my whole life. I spend a lot of time on X when I see these liberals tweeting out just complete lies about, oh, they're just rounding people up and sending them to El Salvador. I often go in the comments and correct it. But, there's a lot of folks as well when they're tweeting and talking about this on the left or in the left stream media, they like to say like, the immigrants, Trump is doing this to the immigrants. And it's, again, there's another thing about, I'm going to talk about it later, about him fining people who are not self-deporting. And it's like the immigrants, he's fining the immigrants, or he's deporting the immigrants to El Salvador. And I go in like asterisk illegal. It's illegal immigrants. And you know what? If they think that they're so justified in their rationale behind it, why do they take out the word illegal? Why do they try to just say that they're immigrants? Like, if you're so confident in your position that illegal immigrants have all these rights, why do you leave out the word? So it's very frustrating.
Yeah, and I think the framing of it and the semantics are all part of the left's playbook. And they're really good at it, honestly. They're better at it than a lot of conservatives are. But I think that Tom Homan, the border czar, and the Vice President J.D. Vance, even prior to Trump being inaugurated, pointed out the fact that, hey, we're going to get a very similar shift here that we had in 2016, where it's going to be a narrative push to try to convince people that, to your point, it's just like a Maryland father who was walking around, on a Saturday and was rounded up and deported. And their point was, we have to push back. We have to be on the offensive. We have to lay out this narrative so that a Tomi Lahren or someone else on X can go through it and say, hey, just FYI, here's the little detail that you left out, that he was a member allegedly of MS-13. That might be interesting for people to know. What I will say that kind of surprises me about it is I knew there was going to be this push to make all of these situations very sympathetic. I just thought they were going to wait for something that was actually going to resonate. Like, every time I'm seeing this story about the person that they want us all to feel so sorry for, you read the fine print and you're like, this isn't working on me. Like, this isn't going to make me feel bad for this person. I don't want this person here. And so it's been, even the second time around in the second term of Donald Trump, it's watered down. It doesn't have the same punch. I think people really caught on to this the first time with the Time magazine cover with the baby who was crying, who was separated from her mother. Turns out she wasn't separated from her mother. It was fake news. People have been through this time and time again, and they're wisening up a little bit. They're not falling for it as much the second time around.
Yeah, I just don't have a lot of understanding. I would like to think I have compassion, but I don't have understanding really in any of these cases when it's like they've been here for 35 years and then they're being deported. There's usually more to the story, by the way. It's not just you've been here. There's usually a list of things that you've also done. But it's like, you've been here for this long and you didn't try to become legal. You didn't try to get naturalized, and all that time, like, you've been here longer than I've been alive, and you just never thought it important to become a legal citizen of this country. I just don't have a lot of compassion. I don't have a lot of compassion, and I think maybe that's the narrative of just my feelings on all of this, from the proxy voting to the deportation, all this. It's like people who don't take personal responsibility for their own actions or inactions. I have a hard time feeling badly for you, because as an adult and as a member of society over age 18, you should have some ownership of your own freaking decisions. So it's just, like you said, the sympathy I don't think is there. And when I read a lot of the comments, there's not a lot of people that are like, oh no. People are like, good, go. Like, in even on posts made by ABC, CBS, NBC, AP, Reuters, like, you see it, and the people don't have a lot of compassion. I think that we've just been hit too hard to have that compassion.
And the other flip side of this, which is just as important to point out, is that the same people who are looking at us and saying, well, don't you have compassion? Like, don't you feel bad? Look at this story. There was a tremendous lack of compassion when it came to Laken Riley. I mean, think about that joint address. Democrats couldn't even stand up for her family that was, that was partaking in this beautiful moment. They couldn't even find the strength to stand up for these people. None of these people on ABC or CNN were crying over any of these victims. Jocelyn Nungari, Rachel Morin, there wasn't sympathy there. And you were just talking about some of the talking points that we get fed. One of the ones that I really, really struggle with and that it enrages me is when people will turn to me and say, just so you know, illegal aliens actually commit less crimes, statistically speaking, than American citizens. I'm like, I have no doubt that we have American citizens here who are criminals, who are rapists. But I don't think you making the point that like we should be importing more people to add to our plate is a great point that you're making. But they say it so confidently. And I'm like, try telling that on a serious note to Lake and Riley's parents. Like, statistically speaking, I don't think they want to hear that. I don't think it's going to move the needle for them. And I don't think it's moving the needle for most American citizens.
Yeah. And for the record, I want to lock up anybody who's a criminal. I don't care if you're American or whatever. But the illegal aliens that are doing it, that's 100% preventable. And you just saw the kid in South Carolina, the college student who, the hit and run with, again, an illegal alien. You see in Los Angeles, the soccer coach who abused and murdered a young boy, and he's done it before. So I have zero compassion for those individuals, and all of that crime is 100% preventable. Let's keep on the crime topic. I want to talk about what happened in Texas at that track meet, because it is, again, kind of related as well, the no accountability. You've got this kid, Carmelo Anthony, who allegedly, though admittedly, stabbed Austin Metcalf at a track meet over seating in a tent. A stupid reason to stab anybody for any reason is stupid to stab, especially at a track meet. But I think it's crazy now that the lawyers and the dad of Carmelo Anthony not only want the charge downgraded and the bond lowered, but they're saying that this was self-defense. I want to play this clip for those who haven't seen it.
Retained this morning, defense attorney Derek Walpole agreed to speak on behalf of Carmelo Anthony's family.
I know that my client said that it was self-defense. I don't have any reason to disbelieve that, but I needed to develop facts and talk to people and figure out what's going on before I make any statements about what I think happened. I don't have any reason to think it wasn't self-defense at this time.
Yep, that's a hard one to wrap your mind around, that you can pull a knife out of your backpack and stab somebody over a seating dispute and call it self-defense. What do you think?
Yeah, he says he doesn't have any reason to believe that it wasn't self-defense. There's plenty of evidence out there that runs contrary to what he's saying. I don't know if he's done any research into that. But also, even if we were going to put in this hypothetical, and my heart breaks for this family, because you want to talk about a preventable and unnecessary brutal death, brutal murder that we didn't need to have here. But even if you were going to say self-defense is all about a proportionate response. And I don't think someone asking you to move or grabbing you to move seats warrants pulling out a knife and stabbing someone and killing them. I mean, this is beyond my comprehension. And, you just talked about how you spend a lot of time on X. I spend a lot of time on X too. And for people who kind of live on the internet, it's so disturbing how quickly the narrative for this alleged attacker has really come to life. And this attempt to villainize the victim here, really because he's a white guy. So it seems like that would be the obvious road to take. Like we can make him the bad guy. And of course, it's not most sane people. It's important to remember that. It's the loudest people on social media and the most deranged who often get a lot of attention. But it doesn't change the fact that this family that's already going through such strife and such turmoil now has to deal with their son's reputation being besmirched in order to fit this narrative. The whole thing is just absolutely sickening.
It is, and it's going to inspire more people to do things like this, because when you can raise hundreds of thousands of dollars on a GoFundMe for stabbing somebody needlessly, it really sends the wrong message. Let's get into some, the weeds, I guess, for most people. Let's talk about tariffs. Okay, what I think is interesting about all this, first of all, my position on this is I trust President Trump, and it's not because I'm a Trump supporter. It's because I really do believe he knows what he's doing in regards to tariffs. It's something he's been talking about for a long time. I believe it's going to lead to freer trade, number one. And number two, if we can have people making stuff in this country, I think that that's a win. But I think it is interesting, the Elon response to this, for all the folks that are protesting Tesla and they say, oh, Elon's actually the president, all this. Well, he kind of went against not only Trump, but Navarro, senior advisor, on the tariffs. And then now there's this back and forth I want to play the Navarro clip first, and then we'll see Elon's X in response. Let's take a listen.
We all understand in the White House, and the American people understand, that Elon's a car manufacturer. But he's not a car manufacturer. He's a car assembler in many cases. If you go to his Texas plant, a good part of the engines that he gets, which in the EV case is the batteries, come from Japan and come from China. The electronics come from Taiwan. And he wants the cheap foreign parts.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's obvious. And that's why, again, going back to what President Trump said, I believe it was a couple weeks ago about, this misinformation about Elon seeing war plans against China. And Trump said pretty plainly, like, I would never allow him to see that because he's got interests in China. But then Elon, of course, had to do the X post, calling him names, calling him a moron. He also said he was dumber than a sack of bricks or something to that effect. Carolyn Levitt yesterday said this is just boys being boys. But what do you think here? Do you think that there might be some trouble in paradise, or is this just natural disagreement playing out in front of us?
It's funny because what I actually thought of when I saw this fighting was it took me back to Zelensky in the Oval Office, which I know might sound crazy to people, but I remember at the time my knee-jerk reaction was like, oh my God, this isn't good. Oh, fireworks. I don't like confrontation to this degree. This is bad. And I was totally wrong. I was totally wrong. It actually was a great thing for people to see it out in the open and for people to kind of see that transparency of people disagreeing. I think that when it comes to tariffs, though, when it comes to this issue that clearly means a lot to Trump, I actually am very impressed with how willing he is to stick by his guns, despite the fact that you're looking at a very tumultuous stock market. You're looking at a lot of things that I think in his first term would have steered him away from this and would have kind of made him gun shy. Not so much the second time around. Even the Washington Post had a quote from someone in the White House that said, hey, he doesn't give a bleep, and not in a bad way. I read it as like, he's going to do what he wants to do. He campaigned on this. He believes in it. He believes in us, which is very different from a lot of the people in DC. I don't think they have the same faith in the American people. And so I think when you're dealing with something this huge, this monumental, it would benefit the White House to kind of get on the same message, even if that means that some people have to have it out maybe in private and not on television. I don't think that would be a terrible idea. But I think the more important thing is that Trump stands with what he believes. And everything I've seen up until this point, like Navarro can say one thing and Elon Musk can say another, but Trump is the decision maker on this in this case with tariffs. And he is not moving one way or the other. He believes that he's making the right call. He's not going to be shaken by the stock market. He's not going to be shaken by the naysayers, a lot of whom have gotten things wrong for decades. And I think that's the more important part of this entire story.
I think it also shows that President Trump is President Trump. And although he looks at Elon Musk as a very skilled and talented individual, and there's a place for him, he's not listening and taking his orders from Elon Musk. President Trump is very much in charge. And to all the people that have been saying, oh, it's actually Elon, and he just wants stuff for his businesses, Trump is saying, this actually might hurt Elon's business, but I don't care because I'm for America first. And so I think that that's an important distinction to make. And then all these people with these conspiracy theories, oh, Trump wants to tank everything because he's a real estate developer and he wants everyone so he can buy up their real estate. It's like, you really think this man in his second term as president, right, is like, boy, when I get done here, I'm going to real estate develop. Like, no, that's not, he's doing this because he's always wanted to do this. And now he feels that he has the leeway to do it and transform our economy. I put my trust in him on that point. But, to this, I said this yesterday in my final thoughts, and it's just kind of like an open conversation and dialogue. And I'd love to get your take on it. I don't know your age. I'm 32. So it was right around my birth that we started getting all of our cheap crap from China and Vietnam and all these other countries. And it was like, oh, well, we can get it cheaper from there. And all these companies started turning to China and their cheap labor and in some cases sweatshop labor to make all of our things. And we got addicted to that. But when I look at stuff, and this is just anecdotal, of course, but when I look at even like my mom's clothes that she's had in the 80s, it's like better quality. And I look at it and it's not because it's designer. Like she got it at probably like JCPenney, but it was better quality. And I don't know where all of it was made, but it just seemed like stuff was better. My parents had the same refrigerator for, 20 years and it was better. It lasted. And now the appliances in my house break down every 5 years and they have to get this repair or that repair or something goes wrong. And I'm wondering, like, would it be such an awful thing if we started making things here and made them of better quality and paid a little more for that better quality. I understand not everybody can afford to pay more, but it seems like maybe an okay thing.
Yeah, I'm the same age as you, and I totally agree. I have a leather skirt from my mother-in-law that I just put on a few weeks ago, and I was like, this is incredible that this is 30 years old. But I will say this. I noticed when it comes to tariffs, when it comes to bringing back American manufacturing and kind of tackling this beast that a lot of people have been talking about for a really long time. Everyone was very comfortable talking about it. Everybody was very comfortable diagnosing the problem, writing think pieces about the problem, getting paid in think tanks to talk about the problem and give speeches about the problem. And yet, no one really wanted to do anything about the problem. And I think it would have been very easy for Trump to come in and say, I know I campaigned on this, but we're dealing with a lot of things from the Biden administration. And, I don't have the support or I don't have the votes, and just say the kind of thing that politicians always say when they actually get an opportunity to try something. Mm-hmm. And that for me is someone who is 32, who has watched politicians come in and out. And it's not just on tariffs. It's on a lot of different things that Trump is doing. I find it so exciting, and I'm not downplaying how nerve-wracking it can be for people with their 401ks and everything like that. I never try to dismiss people's money concerns. I get how serious that is. But it is inspiring to me that there's a president who's really trying to change something like this. He's trying to change trade on a global scale. That is a huge undertaking. And it's exciting that someone's actually going to do it. And I think that a big part of the reason why some of these people, some of these DC Beltway insiders think it's impossible is because they don't have faith in the American people to withstand this short-term pain and to be able to come out on the other side. And you can say what you want about Trump, you can love him or you can hate him, but I don't think there's any question that he has a lot of faith in this country and he believes in this country and he believes in our ability to do great things. And so I'm with you on the fact that I trust in Trump on this one. And it's not because I'm like a MAGA. I mean, I am MAGA, but it's not really because of that. It's more so because it's hard to find people who have been the same on an issue for 30 years. And if you get a mandate and you've been talking about something for 30 years and you get your chance, you get your at bat to try it, you're going to do that. And if you don't do it, what the hell was the point of all this? Like, why did he survive assassination attempts? Why did he survive lawfare and Hollywood and all these people coming after him if he's going to get his at bat and he's just going to kick the can down the road? It just doesn't make sense to me.
He's not going to bunt. That is for sure. I'll also say this. I think it's a great thing if we make things here. I think it's a great thing if we have something to offer the world beyond just social media influencers and big government. And again, going back to something that my grandpa used to say, like, you have to make something. You have to be able to build something and sell something tangible to the rest of the world, because you can't just, ideas are great and technology and all these things, that's all great that you sell ideas or we sell service. But if you're not making anything and another country is making everything, that's a national security concern as well. So we should be able to make things here. And I think that we've got the best people to do it. And I think more people should work in the trades. And I think that it's a noble job to build things and make things and manufacture things. And I think entire towns will be revitalized if that becomes a part of the portfolio. I'm not saying everybody's just going to, quit their job and go work in a factory, but it's honest work. And I think we could stand to do more of it.
Yeah, you're on the money. And it also, I know we keep going back to COVID during this conversation, but it brings me back to COVID. How scary was it that we were dependent on China and on all these other countries for everything? I mean, I don't think I even realized it. You buy a lot of stuff, you click, you buy, you maybe check the tag. You're like, oh, here, it's made in China. I'm not denying that I do that sometimes. I look at things, I'm like, oh, I probably could have found a better version of this, something made here. But during COVID, it was unbelievable how dependent, how reliant we were on these other countries. And it was scary. I mean, medication, chips for cars, all of these things that we were waiting on. And to your point about trades and about producing something, my husband's an electrician. I'm a huge, huge proponent of the trades. I think it's a wonderful career. I think it's a wonderful life if you enjoy it. The thing I've noticed from some people on social media and just like a general sentiment on the left is that the days of the factory are behind us and that nobody wants those jobs. And I think they're projecting a little bit because I think there's a lot of places in middle America and there's a lot of families. I mean, I was talking to my parents and they're both from South Boston, and they said when they were growing up in Southie, most people that they knew, their friends, their parents either worked at the Edison plant or they worked at Gillette. And Gillette was a big company in Boston at the time. And those were two jobs where people could depend on that. People, could raise families on that. Yep. And so this idea that no one's going to want those jobs, or, people want cheap stuff, but they don't want to work in a factory. It's a little bit, to me, it reeks of a snobbiness or an elitism that I don't appreciate.
Well, Grace, it's the people that are talking about it that don't want to do that. It's the people that work where we work in media that don't want to do that. But there are plenty of people that do want to work with their hands, that do want to make things. There are plenty of people in this country that love that. And you know what? We saw yesterday with President Trump and the coal miners. There's people that entire towns and generations of their family has worked in a coal mine, and they want to work in a coal mine. And that, to me, sounds awful. Like, I can't imagine working in a coal mine, but there are people that they would love to work in a coal mine, and their children would love to also work in the coal mine because you can make good money and it's a lifestyle that they enjoy. And that's not for me, but who is it for me who works in media to say, oh, nobody wants to do that? There are people that do want to do that for an honest wage. It's the same argument they make. Well, we have to have illegal immigrants because Americans won't do this. They won't do it for slave labor prices, but they will do hard jobs for a decent wage. And the left always talks about the living wage. They want the fast food workers to make $20 an hour, but yet they don't think that farm workers and stuff and people who are working and doing jobs that they think just illegal aliens can do, Americans will do those jobs. You just got to pay them fairly for it. And when you pay people fairly for what they're doing, then they then have more money, and then they spend more money, and that employs more people. And people that are in media might not understand that, but people that grow up like I did or like you did, and your husband being an electrician, well know that. So I think that a lot of this is just elites that are talking from inexperience.
Yeah, and I think there's this real desire to dismiss things if they don't happen instantly. And I've been kind of amazed at the fact that, we're on day 5 of this and people are acting as though it's been, and again, not downplaying the significance of it, people are acting as though it's been like 7 or 8 months of this. Now, meanwhile, we had 4 years of Joe Biden and inflation. None of these people were in a rush to do anything. They kept telling us everything was great. But it's kind of a trend I noticed with so many monumental issues that if you try to tackle it, if you have a new approach or if you have a game plan, you were told by the left that that's never going to happen. Like that, we're never going to bring jobs back here. We're never going to have factories again. We're never going to be able to deport people. That was something that for a long time we were told, well, there's millions of people in this country. You're going to deport all of them. And JD Vance so beautifully said during the debate, well, we can start with the worst. We can start somewhere.
We can start somewhere. Yeah.
What is this instinct to immediately say, that's impossible. That's never going to work, from people, by the way, Tomi, who also tell us that unicorns and fairy dust, and we're gonna lower the Earth's temperature, and men can be women and women can be men. When it comes to that stuff's all good. But if you say, I want to bring,
you can have a penis and play women's sports, that's okay. Some people, totally they can be two-spirit and they can be poly, I don't know what, and like that's all possible. Shoot for the stars, but it's like, but we can't make things here, like too far.
No, that's impossible. That's impossible. You need a magic wand, as Obama would say. It's never going to happen. We're all out of our minds. But then all of these other issues like cows farting, they're going to stop them from doing that. And I kind of sit here and I go, well, I don't know, maybe have a little of that chutzpah and a little of that confidence when it comes to the American people and what we're able to do. You seem to have it with everything else.
Exactly. Well, that's a great place to leave it. Thank you so much for your time. I really hope to have you back. I really enjoyed the conversation. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thanks, Tomi.
Of course. All right, the left is freaking out on behalf of illegal aliens again after President Trump announced a plan to fine them daily for failure to self-deport. And I have some final thoughts. Once again, Democrats are all up in arms over their precious illegal aliens. This time, they are pissed. The Trump administration may soon fine illegal immigrants who do not self-deport. This is a genius idea, truly. It's pretty simple. If you're here illegally, and y'all know who you are, you've been given the courtesy to deport yourselves before ICE does it for you. And if you don't, not only will you still be up for deportation, you'll be subject to a fine of $998 per day for every day you've overstayed your final deportation order. I gotta hand it to Trump. Not only is he working to secure our borders and rid our nation of alien criminals, rapists, murderers, and thugs, he's gonna find a way to make some of that money back these illegals have cost us. And if the illegals have no money to pay, which is weird because they scrounged up enough to pay a smuggler, but anyway, that's okay. The administration will be happy to seize property as well. It's actually a generous offer. The administration is allowing those who damn well know they shouldn't be here to use that handy little CBP One app to start the process, and they even get to pick a departure flight. That's better service than I get from Delta. And if these illegals leave on their own, they can keep their money and may even be eligible to come the right way in the future after they've thought long and hard about what they did, of course. I don't see why Democrats are so mad about it, except, of course, the obvious reason. Some, like Jasmine Crockett, want these illegals to pick crops, and others, like all of them, don't want their future voters deported before they can give them amnesty and voting rights and include them in the future census. All their hard work might be deported before they have a chance to win national office again. Oh, shucks. Get over it. Those are my final thoughts. I'll see you right back here live tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern, where I will crown my losers of the week. Also, please like and subscribe to the YouTube channel at Tomi Lahren is Fearless from Nashville. God bless and take care. Hey, thanks for watching. If you want more of my hottest takes, must-see conversations, and of course, my final thoughts, click here and make sure you subscribe here so you never miss a beat. I'll be here every weekday, and I hope you'll join me.